Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Nathan Slusser. I'm with the Jefferson County Veteran Service Office. I'm here with Vincetta. What's your last name?
Tsouris.
Tsouris. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. We're doing an interview for the Library of Congress, 500 Market Street, Steubenville, Ohio. And if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit about yourself. Birth date, branch, just give me some biographical details on you and you know, the service and stuff.
Okay, September 19th, 1957. I joined May 19th, 1976.
Okay.
Went to basic training in September. By the time I got out of basic, I had one cert.
Okay.
And I was an administrative assistant, reserves. And I liked it so much I wanted to go active duty, but they had me in the slot. So then I was there about a year, and I went for chapel management because I liked Keesler so much. I went back to Keesler for tech school. I was enlisted 6 years. I went to the rank of tech sergeant. In the meantime, I went to nursing school, and I switched over to become a flight nurse. 1982.
Okay.
In Pittsburgh. This was on 9/11th Airlift Wing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and became a second lieutenant in 1982. And I stayed in until I was lieutenant colonel when I switched to go to Andrews, Joint Base Andrews. 2010, I was there for 3 years, and then I retired 2013 at the rank of colonel.
Okay, so full bird colonel.
Yes.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Thank
You did. How many years did you end up doing?
37.
37 years.
37.
That's a long time. That's amazing. And that you were in the Air Force. Did you end up doing any active? Were you active duty or were you all reserve time?
I was always reserve,
Okay.
except for my deployments and my
Okay.
tech schools and
Well, it's
and
amazing. I
different
mean,
schools for
a lot
nursing, flight nurse school.
of people don't make it to tech sergeant, and then go from tech sergeant. And then a lot of people don't make it to full bird colonel. A lot of officers don't even. So you've done both. I mean,
Yeah.
tech sergeant is the hardest rank in the Air Force to make, and well, for the enlisted side, and I don't know much about the officer side, but I would assume colonel's not easy to make either.
It was hard. I met the board 4 times,
Okay.
and finally I made it. I kept trying, and the 4th time it was Senate. The Senate had to approve it, and
Oh wow.
I did make it. I was able to retire at colonel.
That is a really, well, we're gonna get through the whole story. I'm super excited to hear the whole story, but kind of let's start at the beginning. Let's start, first off, where were you born?
Steubenville.
Steubenville, Ohio? Okay. And you lived here your whole life, grew up here?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I have 6.
6, okay.
My one brother passed away. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers.
Okay. And your mom and dad, what?
They're from here.
Okay.
Well, my mom was from Italy, and they met. My dad went to the same hometown in Italy, and they met, and so she came here. They lived here all their lives.
What did they do?
My dad had different little like cigar stores, and he had a sports shop. It was called Tommy's Lounge, and my mom was going to be a nun when she was in Italy.
Well, that didn't, I was gonna say, that didn't continue, did it?
No, but she made tablecloths and different lace things, and when she came here, she was a homemaker.
Okay.
With 7 kids, and
From going to a nun to 7 kids, that's a lifestyle change. All right, cool. Any of your siblings, did they join?
no.
So only you, okay. And what made you want to join? How did that all start?
Well, it was actually right after Vietnam. It was 1976.
Okay.
And Joanne Jerlicka, Ravazio then, we were friends, and we took the ASVAB together, and I thought about it for a year, and then I was afraid to go active duty, so I did join reserves, and so I went into admin. They wanted me to go into electronics, but I went into admin, so I was in admin for like the chapel management was similar, so it was 6 years.
Okay. So we start out, well, let's start with basic training then. Can we go from like MEPS to basic to let's first base, what's it like? What's basic training like in the 70s for a female?
It was different. I called my dad and I said, can you get me out of here? And he said, are they feeding you? And I said, yes. And he said, then you'll be fine.
Yep.
but it was, I didn't know what to expect, I guess.
Right.
Because really I was the only one that I knew in the military. I wanted to travel, and I definitely got to travel.
I would assume so, yeah.
But I made a lot of friends, and I was amazed because, I didn't know people from all over the world before.
Mm-hmm.
I met people from Texas to Alaska to everywhere, and we got to be really good friends. And then some of us went on to tech school together. So it was nice getting to meet everybody from everywhere.
Well, why'd you want to leave when you got there? Was it?
I was just afraid.
Oh, okay.
And I actually, they were giving us the uniform, I didn't even, it didn't hit me.
Okay.
They took our suitcase and put it away, and I thought it was more like I wanted to be a flight attendant.
Oh,
So it ended
okay.
up, I wanted to travel, and
Okay. So basic training then, was it a breeze? Was it hard? What's your overall feeling on basic?
no, I don't think it was hard. It was good learning. We had a lot of training, and we learned all the different parade moves, the marching, and it was really interesting. And now I think back, it was because we had Iraqi and Iranian troops right on the base with us.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Yeah, and it was interesting. You just met everyone from everywhere around the world.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that we had that.
Yeah,
At that time
we
frame.
would have free time. We'd
Oh yeah.
and get to go to the club and.
Oh,
And
during basic?
You know what? That might have been
Tech school?
Yeah. Well, basic. My big event was going to the BX
Yeah.
or going to church. Like a lot, you would get to meet up with different people from different squadrons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What was your culmination of basic training? What was the end all be all? What was I'm done. I'm an airman now.
I guess at the end we were under a hangar or under the building. It was undercover, and we just were in formation, and we were a group. We started together, and we saw a lot of people get set back, or they quit, and it was an accomplishment.
It definitely is. Basic training is. It can be easy. But it's definitely an accomplishment. You've gone from a civilian to a full-blown service member at that point.
Yeah, and then talking to people, finding out why they joined. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so on that topic, now we're done with basic. We got to go to tech school. Tell me about your tech school experience.
That I really enjoyed. It was all classwork, and we were living in dorms. It was like college.
Oh, okay. What'd you learn about? What's the admin?
Well, it was secretarial, and we had typewriters in, but and it was carried over from school because I was in that type of class at Central.
Oh, okay.
Catholic Central.
Student Catholic Central,
Yeah.
where you went? Okay.
Mm-hmm. The typing and the we didn't have shorthand anymore, but it was the secretarial.
Were there males in that career field, or was it all female?
There were some.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any in your class?
Yeah.
I didn't, I wasn't sure. Okay, so,
Yeah.
after that, you go, what happens next? You finish tech school. How long was tech school?
It was 6 weeks.
Okay, so 6 weeks basic,
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks tech school, and then what? What happens now?
And then I came back and I played the organ in church.
Okay.
So they asked me if I wanted to work in the chapel,
Mhm.
because chapel management is like the admin specialist. And they said they would send me back to Keesler because I really liked it there. It was right on the beach and the Gulf.
Yeah.
And so I went back for 6 weeks for chapel management.
Okay.
So I met new friends, and we were living in the dorms. And
Was that tech school hard?
the tech school, no, it was the same as admin. There was bookkeeping and secretarial skills.
Okay, but just, I guess, more centered on the chapel aspect of the base.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you get to choose what religion you worked with, or was it all
No,
one?
we worked
How
with
would
all
that-
religions.
Okay.
So I really learned a lot about all of them.
Okay. So really cool experience then. Did you work with the chapel, with the priests and the clergy there, or was it directly, or were you like a chapel assistant? Or
Yeah, chapel assistant.
is that the one where they teach you like how to protect the priest during deployments and?
Well, I don't know, they really didn't, it wasn't that involved. It was mostly the secretarial work.
Okay. Because I knew a couple of chapel assistants when I was in, and they had to like learn how to, they're the ones who got the guns for they followed the priest everywhere, or the clergyman, or the whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was maybe it was the same thing. I don't know.
But we would help set up for services, and then we'd have the social hour. And
It's not a bad job.
no, it was nice. And since I played the organ, I got to learn the different services. I played
Oh,
for all the
that's
different
cool.
services.
Okay, that's really cool then. Now, were you what religion were you just for? I mean, because you learned a lot. So what religion were you?
I was Roman Catholic,
Okay.
but
I don't want to make assumptions.
no, that's fine. But I played for all the religions.
Right.
And it was nice.
That's really cool.
Got to
Yeah.
learn about it.
So, all right, we got one striper, Airman Vincetta. I'm sorry, what was the last name again?
It was Savanella.
Salvanella. Okay, we got Airman Salvanella. What happens now? I mean, you got to go. I don't know how the Guard and Reserve works. So, how do we get promoted? How do we what do we got to do?
Well, I stayed there for 6 months. 6 years
Okay.
at the chapel, and I was going to school for nursing, so I transferred to the 33rd. It was called the 33rd Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron,
Mm-hmm.
and I transferred and became a second lieutenant, and I went there I was there the 34 years before I went over to Joint Base Andrews for the last part of my career. But I was a flight nurse all those years, and we did cross countries. We would do practice flights with we would go on cross countries, or we would do local flights. I had, I think, 3,500 hours, flight hours.
Oh wow.
We would have, it would be once or twice a week. I would go up and we'd fly with the C-130. I was always with the C-130.
Okay.
And
Were there any other airframes that you could be on?
Well, being deployed, we were on a KC-135, C-17, 130. And there were some trips when we went to Scott Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called. I think it was a C-9. But they retired it.
I don't know that one.
That was the active duty aeromedical.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know where Scott is. Isn't that in Illinois? I think.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know what plane. I don't know the C-9. I've never heard of
I
it.
think that's what it was.
That's
But
okay. We won't quote you on it. I promise.
But we would fly, we would do 2-week tours, or I got to go to Hawaii,
Yeah.
Alaska.
So you did some traveling.
Yeah, a
Well,
lot of traveling.
what I want to know, what I'm kind of interested in is, so we become a tech sergeant, right? So you're in charge of airmen at that point. I mean, the E6 is not a easy job. I mean, you're writing EPRs, you're in charge of the flight, or somewhat in charge of the flight. I guess your masters and above would be more in charge. But So what is your daily duties at the chapel before we move on? Because I'm interested in that. Like, are you there 1 weekend a month? Or are you
It was
there?
1 weekend.
Okay, so you're there. You're 1 weekend a month, and you're 2 weeks a week. You're training. Did you ever do AGR or anything like that, or were you working full time for the Air Force? And then okay,
No, I never did.
okay. So then let's go ahead and move towards the becoming an LT. So you become a second lieutenant. Do you just switch over, or is there a process to that? How does that work?
Well, there was officer training school, but they actually didn't have slots. Well, for the medical, it was not OTS, it was called something else.
Okay.
And they didn't have any slots available, and they said since I went to basic training, I didn't have to go.
Oh,
I actually
okay.
wanted to go, but I didn't get to.
Okay, so they literally just swapped you. They went from
Yeah.
your tech sergeant, your tech sergeant, to
Uh-huh.
now you're second lieutenant. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you go from saluting these guys to getting saluted by the same guy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool stuff. And so you go over, you get your commission. What happens at your first duty station as a flight nurse? I mean, what do you like? You walk in there, you're new, brand new shiny bars. What's going on?
Well, it was all training. You know, the whole weekend we have training, and we flew a lot. Check rides, you had to know all the aircraft. You had to know all your patient care.
Okay.
Just
Can you go into detail with that stuff? I don't know anything about that.
about the aircraft.
Well, just like your check ride, like what's a check ride? What do you do in
A
it?
check ride is very involved. Like, they go over the whole aircraft. You have to know the fire alarm systems. You have to know all the locations of the exits. You have to know, well, and then you'll get medical emergencies too for your check ride, like a cardiac arrest, or someone's, I don't know, bleeding out, something, like you're always being tested.
So it's not real, it's all exercise.
Well, when on deployments it was real, but
Well, I meant, for the
yeah,
check ride.
yeah,
That's what I'm getting at.
and you have to know the aircraft inside and out.
Okay.
And you have to manually open the exits, and, well, the overhead hatches, you have to know where they're located for ditching or crash landing. You have to know the steps to take and position.
Are you jump qualified? Like, do you have a parachute, or are you going down with the plane?
They only have parachutes for the front end. That's the
Okay.
pilot, the navigator, and the loadmasters. But
So you guys are on your own at that.
Yeah, we're on our
Okay,
own.
that's not cool at all. I'm sorry to hear that. Go ahead. I'm
we
sorry.
just kind of knew it. But I mean, I've been in emergencies, and actually, you just put your trust in the pilot.
I'm sure. Yeah, they're probably they are very well trained. The Air Force does a great job of training.
Yeah, I mean, we
It's kind
were
of their
getting
mission.
shot at, and we had flares going, and
Oh,
we're going everywhere, and you just took, you figured the pilot's taking care of it.
I'm gonna get. So I want to ask a little bit more about leading up. I know that flight crew require, like nowadays, it requires SEER school and some of the other stuff. Did you have to do any of that?
Some people had to for flight nurse school, but when I went to flight nurse school, we had the 3-day survival, and it wasn't. We had to build our own tent,
Okay.
and we only had limited food, so we ate a lot of French onion soup because we found a lot of onions.
Okay.
But some people did go to SEER school.
Okay.
That was part of their flight nurse training.
Yeah, I've heard that's a pretty intense thing to do.
I didn't get to do it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Okay, so we get to our first, well, not our first, I keep saying our first base, but we've done our check rides. Are we a certified flight nurse now?
Yeah.
We're good to go? Okay. So, you've said you've done a couple deployments. Where'd you go? Give me a background here.
Well, the first one was Oman, and that was for Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay.
And I was in the AOC, that's the Aeromedical Operational Team. So I was on the ground directing the flights, but I did get to fly into Afghanistan. But my main duty was directing the flights from Oman, and we supported the flights going into and out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
And the second one was,
Can you tell me when was that deployment?
that was 2002.
Okay.
And we were the first. There were 10 of us that got activated, and we had no idea. And our order said 1 year. And I was talking to Vietnam vets, and I just thought, oh God, I'm going for a year. But it ended up actually 4 months, and then we came back here and went back and forth to Pittsburgh for a couple months. But we were the first to go. There were 10 of us.
Wow.
And then the second one was I'm sorry, it was second one, 2004. Was Qatar.
Oh, okay.
I have to think.
Is Qatar, I always get it mixed up. Is that IED?
Yeah,
Okay.
IED.
IED Air Base, got it.
Hmm. Well, when I was in Oman, like, Iraq was just,
Kicking
when I
off.
was coming back, it was September 11th, and we were supposed to fly back, and they canceled everything for that day. They didn't want
Hope
anything
so.
going on,
Yeah.
because it was only a year after, it was 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2004, I went to Qatar, and we were supporting both Afghanistan and Iraq. But I was flying then, so I was flying into all the bases, Lod, Kirkuk, Tikrit, just all different bases. We were
Yeah.
picking up patients and bringing them back to the main base in Iraq, and then we would come back to Qatar for our home base, or we would fly up to Germany, bring the
Marshall?
patients to Germany. Hmm.
Okay.
And sometimes we would fly out of Qatar, or we would go into Iraq and pick them up and go into Germany. But sometimes they would just throw patients on the plane because they needed to get to Germany. So we would, that was my mission there. I was flying all the flights to Iraq to Germany. And then the next deployment was Afghanistan
Where at?
in Bagram.
Okay.
There we were flying into different places in Afghanistan. And again, we were always on the C-130s when we were in
Yeah.
country. But when we went up to Germany, it was a C-17.
That's a long flight.
Yeah.
It's quite a long flight.
Mhm.
I don't know the time frames on them, but
It's like, I can't remember now. I hate to
I
say.
can't remember. No, I can't
But-
remember either.
But you knew those were long flights, and it was hard to keep patients. You had to keep them medicated and wound dressing, and
I have quite a
Just
few.
trying to-
I have quite a few questions. Can I
yeah.
ask you? Okay. So back to 2002. You said you're directing the flights. What do you mean by that? What are you doing?
Well, we were directing the crews. Like, we were putting them on. We had crews from like California, and we made up crews of 5, 2 flight nurses, 3 techs, and we would put them on alert status. We would call them for flights. We would get them on the plane. We would offload them. We would get them ready for their flights, bring them to the armory, get their narcotics.
Also, their narcotics are started in the armory.
No. They would have to get them through us. Like in the AR, the operational team, we would have their narcotics, their maps.
Okay.
They would like sign out their narcotics, sign out their maps, and something else. Like a survival kit. They would, go through us, and then we would send them.
Okay. And so you're kind of the pre-deployment in the deployment zone. I would.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, we were the operational team, and like we would set up their intel briefings, and we would work with the airlift. Well, what do I want to call them? Like the front end, we would arrange all the, like when the plane's coming. So we would be there to meet them, bring the oxygen, have it set up. We would actually set up the plane.
Oh, okay.
We'd set up the oxygen. We'd set up the because we'd have to configure for how many patients we're getting.
See, and that's what I was going to ask. I mean, the planes. I know C-130s don't come configured
No.
for medical. They're cargo
Yeah.
ships essentially.
So we had to put the poles in, and we had to put the seats in, we had to put the straps for the litters, we had to configure the plane, and then we had to have the seats for the crew, set up the oxygen, set up the electrical, because we had our own electrical system. And that was all on the truck ride too. You had to know the oxygen system, you had to know the electrical, you had to know, everything about the aircraft, and everything about the medical side of it.
Does the oxygen system work in concurrent with the oxygen system that's on the aircraft itself?
Yes, we would plug in,
To theirs?
and we brought the same oxygen on for C-17s. We had 1,800 pounds of equipment went with every flight.
Okay.
And that would just be like the whole litter full of like their life pack and all the emergency equipment. And then when we had a critical team, we had more equipment. So we had to set up all their equipment, and
What's a critical team?
it was a doctor, a critical care nurse, and a respiratory tech.
Okay.
And they would be called for certain flights. So we'd have to have a whole section for them, and then we'd have to have all their equipment, and we'd have to pick up their food. And, we'd have to arrange all that. We'd get box lunches, and we'd have coolers for water. We had to have food for the patients. So it was preparing the plane and preparing the crews. We'd give them their briefings, and we'd debrief them when they came back and put away the narcotics, bring them to the armory and get their weapons stored.
So you're
Get them rides back and forth.
You're an integral part in life-saving operations between here and anywhere, and Landstuhl, and wherever these airmen, soldiers, Marines, sailors are going to go from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So that's what you're doing the entire first deployment.
Well, I got to fly also, because
Okay, cool.
being a flight nurse, you have to fly so many days so you don't go non-current. So I did
Okay.
get to fly into Afghanistan, so I was on the other side.
And what do you do as a flight nurse? I mean,
We actually,
probably a
that
stupid
flight,
question.
that flight was strange because we had civilians. We had Afghanistan civilians.
Okay.
And we brought them back to Oman for care. But we, in the hospitals there, like, when I was in Afghanistan, we took care of civilian kids, and I don't know where they drew the line, who we were taking care of, but when I flew into Afghanistan for that tour, I airlifted mostly civilian
Oh, wow.
troops, and it's all dark, so we had red lights, so you could see in flight, because they don't want you to be having lights on flying into the combat zones.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that particular flight, we had to spiral out because I guess we were being shot at, or I don't know. They would put lasers on us a lot. That was a thing for Afghanistan. So they had to spiral out. And,
Okay. So, is
so
that
you're
fun?
trying to like take care of these patients with the light, and
And you're standing up, you're walking around.
yeah.
So you're doing everything, you're doing all the duties of a nurse
Mhm.
in combat flight.
Mhm.
So that can't be easy.
No.
It's got to be stressful. And I'm sure you're directing what others are doing as well, aren't you?
Yeah, medical's different. Everyone calls us by first name, and we all kind of work together, and I think it's kind of a shock to other squadrons, because medical, we're just like, partners. We're working together.
Enlisted and officers are very
Tight knit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and whereas other career fields,
Yeah,
they don't have that opportunity.
no.
For guys like, and I don't want to interject, but just for the sake of those listening, I was maintenance. For maintenance guys, it was the only time we saw an officer. If I saw you inside, I would be in trouble,
Yeah.
or I'd be hurt. You know, That's the only reason I would see you as an officer, so I can understand the sentiment. And you're working with A1Cs and tech sergeants, and everybody's everybody, you know, and that makes total sense. And I think, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think at the beginning of the war, things were a lot different than they are now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Even when I got out, things were different.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of change in the Air Force. When did you get out, by the way?
2013.
Oh, okay, so we served in the same time frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were together, we were in there at the same time.
Were you in, where were you?
I was Air Force.
Oh.
I was active duty Air Force for 10 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, we served, I was in Balad, I was in Bagram.
Oh, okay.
So you could have been lifting me out at one point in time. We would have never known.
I was mostly flying. In the reserves, you can make your job as a flight nurse or a low master or whatever. You could be full-time.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know if you'd ever done that.
They were always asking me to fly because they had to have 2 nurses and 3 techs to get the, flight off the ground.
Right.
So being that I was working part-time, I went on a lot of flights. But we were going to get deployed to Kuwait right afterwards for Iraq. But I wasn't in that group. So I didn't go. They went a couple months later. And so I didn't go on that tour, but I did get deployed again 2 years later. Like I went 2004, and it happened every summer. 2002, 2004, 2006, 2008,
Yeah.
and 2010.
That's your rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have them. I was the same way. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you've gone, how many times did you end up going?
Well, I went to Andrews 3 times.
Okay.
So it was 7 total.
The deployments, 7 deployments?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But after 01, it was Qatar. And then 2006, it was Afghanistan. So we were in Afghanistan.
You were in Bagram, right? You said?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I ended up being the officer in charge because, I don't know why that happened. I think because my rank or whatever. And then, but I was mostly working with the hospital. We were getting all the patients ready for all the flights.
Okay.
And I did fly there too. We flew into Kandahar, and then I flew a couple other times. And they were blackout flights, because we went right into, since it was a C-130, we could go onto the short airfields.
Oh yeah, those things can take off and land pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. And then 2008 is when I started the deployments at Andrews.
Okay.
And I actually thought those were worse because the patients were the best they were going to be. Like when we were picking them up in the combat zone, they had like an amputation or something, but they were going on for further care. Where at Andrews, they were going to their home station.
Oh, okay.
So they were, it was already after all their therapy and
they're flying on C-130s and stuff then?
well, we were C-130s because we went to Georgia a lot for the Army bases
Like
in
Fort Benning
Georgia,
and
and we
stuff,
went to New York.
Mm-hmm.
But the cross-country ones to California, that would be a 2-dayer, that was a C-17. And we flew the 135 a lot in the States.
I could not imagine, even if I'm hurt, I would want a civilian flight. I'm not going to lie to you. I would want a real flight,
Some troops were afraid when we were in, war, like in Iraq. The one time we landed and the base was under attack. And the one Army kid, he really had a hard time. He went to run off the plane.
Oh, wow.
He was scared. But I don't know, there were a lot of injuries.
Can you tell me how many you dealt with, roundabout?
I don't know how many, but coming to Germany, they would try to put as many as we could get on because we only had so many flights a week. So we tried to get everybody to Germany at the same time. So those would be more full, maybe 30 or so. But then when I was back in the States, we had tours, 2-week tours to go to Germany and bring them back and forth to the States.
Oh, wow.
That was our job, and that was hard because it's like a 9-hour flight, and the whole time you're just running around trying to take care of everybody, giving their medications, IVs, and just
Feeding them, making sure they got, I mean.
yeah.
And this may be a stupid question, but what about bathrooms? I mean, do they use, that's gotta be a difficult thing to deal with on a C-130.
Well, they would always set it up for us.
Okay, so they had a
do have
bathroom,
that.
okay.
Honey,
I mean, well, I'm thinking not only for you guys, but for
Yeah.
the patients as well. I mean, those guys, you know, you're stuck on a plane for 9 hours.
yeah,
It's not.
they would try to set something up for
Okay,
them.
that's good to know. And so you're an integral part of these guys' care every single day
Yeah.
for those 9 hours. And are you flying back and forth from Germany to, I mean, every day for 2 weeks? Like, how does it work?
No, well, they would have a special, it would be like a special assignment, like, you would sign up for it and, you would go to Germany and bring the patients back.
Okay.
But they tried to, like when I was in the operation team, we had to rotate and we had to give them so many hours of crew rest and so many hours of alert, so that way they're ready to fly on the next mission. But some of these patients, like when we would land in the States, well, the one time we had a whole plane full of burn patients. So we had to come overpass, coming from Germany, we had to go right to Texas, drop off the burn patients, and the other patients didn't complain at all. They were going to Andrews, and they didn't complain at all because they knew why we were overpassing their stop. But that was the first time they got to use the phone. You know, you'd hand them a cell phone. Do you want to call someone? And
I didn't think about that part.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, so you
'cause
get injured, they go to the hospital, and they're basically.
and or they would just be so happy to see a Pepsi or, you know, just something
How long,
reminded them of the States and just.
how long were most of those guys over there, you know?
It depended. The Army had tours of like a year, and they were jealous of us because the Air Force had the 3-4 month tours. I think the Marines were 8 months. But
And you got to see, you've helped all different branches.
we even had special forces that fell off a roof, and they were back injuries, and we were under attack the one time in Balad, and like everyone got off. Well, of course, like some medical had to stay on. I stayed on with my tech. He was from Pittsburgh too, and he was like, "Thank you for staying with us." And we're like, "Thank you for doing what you did." I mean, because we couldn't get them off the plane because they had the sirens on and you could hear the mortars hitting but the tech, I don't know, he just like, he was setting up oxygen everywhere. And I don't know if it's out of nervousness or what, and we have these Christmas trees. They're a connector for the oxygen
Oh, okay, yeah.
to make it.
I know you're talking about the little
Yeah.
yellow, the indicators. So,
Yeah.
I know you're talking
And
about.
he said, he was like, "Do you have another Christmas tree? You have another?" And meanwhile, like, you hear these bombs, and I said, and then he said to me, "You're a saint." I said, "I think you're Saint Nicholas," because it was like, that's all he was doing was putting up Christmas trees everywhere. But,
That's funny.
then the pilots stayed with us, and they said, "Let's get the hell out of here." When we finally were cleared.
Well, and for those who don't know, Balad was very well known
Yeah,
for getting
that's-
mortared.
yeah.
They actually dubbed it Mortaritaville.
Mortaritaville.
Yeah, it's
I
a
got the
beautiful.
sweatshirt.
I know. So yeah, and it lives up to its name. And to think about, you know, being on a plane, hooking up a highly explosive gas,
I know.
and not stopping what you're doing, and everything else takes off. I never even thought about that. The crews hang out then.
Well, they took some of them off, you know, took them to the bunkers. but
Right.
You still had to have medical crew on, so the tech and I stayed on, and
So you guys, and you know, a lot of guys do, and a lot of guys and gals, I should say, especially in the maintenance field, call and make fun of the med group for, you know, not being in harm's way and, you know, sitting back in the offices. So it's really cool to hear that you guys are out there in the fight, you know, really.
Yeah, we've been trying. When we were coming back from, I don't know if it was Iraq or, I can't remember, Afghanistan.
That's all right.
I think it was
They'll
Iraq.
blur.
They were shooting at us, and I was with another tech from Pittsburgh, and he got really nervous. He grabbed his flak jacket. We were on the plane in the air, and you could hear the flares like boom, 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 and the plane was just. But you just figure the pilots in control. I mean, what could we do?
But how do you do your job?
Well, we were sitting then.
Oh, at
we
that
had
point,
to sit. They made us sit.
So
And the patients are strapped in. On the litters, they're strapped
Yeah.
in. They have 2 straps, and unless they're ambulatory, they're sitting in their seats.
Okay.
You have to make sure they're.
Well, yeah, I guess it's something that, like, at least I didn't think about. But yeah, you have to. It's got to be hard to decide who, you know. Okay, I'm sure you want to help these guys if they're in emergent, you know, need.
Mm-hmm.
But then if they're, you know, dodging and weaving,
Yeah.
for lack of a better phrase,
You
there's
can't
nothing
do
you can
anything
do,
like that.
right? Because you can't help everybody,
Yeah.
and if you're down, you can't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
You just have to wait.
that's got to be terrible.
But I mean, we were in Boulogne at that time, and here there was a C-130. It was an Australian plane, and they shot right through where the nurse, because we had assigned seats.
Mhm.
Like you would have the one nurse here and one here, and techs, you know, so they're by the ambulatory patients, and some are by the litters on each side, and the nurse would have been sitting right there, and the small worms, I don't know whatever, came right through that Australian aircraft. And so they were talking about it for days.
I'm sure they were, yeah.
But, you know, we weren't on it. We flew Australian planes, and we flew different aircraft when we were there, because there were people from, well, they're like in the chow hall, you would see the Japanese and the, I think Spanish. You know, you would see all the different countries coming in the chow hall.
Did you guys have the Nigerian guards?
We did.
They were terrifying, weren't they?
I know.
Those
I
guys.
know. We did. They were all,
I remember those guys very vividly.
I know.
And they won't let you take 2 drinks at a time. Oh yeah, they were not very friendly, to say the least. I hope I'm bringing you back a little bit, because yeah, that place was awesome.
I know.
So, all right, now we end up, where are we at our last appointment?
I
What's up?
can't remember. I think that was at Andrews.
Okay,
And then that was 3 times. I went 3 different times. It was nice. We were right off the base, and then we would go on to fly, you know, do our missions. But there were a lot of missions, and I was there the one time around Christmas, and I thought, oh, it's going to be slow, thinking I'm in the hospital,
Right.
like low census days. But they were moving everyone they could, getting them back home. So we had back-to-back flights, and then of course we had the aircraft breakdowns constantly,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
were in the winter, and we'd have people stuck in New York overnight because they were.
C-130s are very noted to break down. Yeah, they're beasts. They call them the Hercules.
I
They
know.
they are the. Just for those, I know you know your call sign had to be Herc something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the C-130 is very well known to break down, and it's a workhorse though. It definitely does its job.
But we were on a C-17 the one time, and he landed really hard when we landed in Iraq, and we had like all the tires caught on fire.
Oh,
So we had
wow.
to switch aircraft. And, I mean, it's a big deal when you're working in the operations team. When there's any delay, you have to notify everybody back to the States, you know, because the delays from like Iraq going to Germany, and then their flights are pushed back up there, like everything just rolled downstream. But so we had to take everything off the plane, go on another plane, or we'd be leaving Germany, and then we were in a C5 then. And you just heard like boom. So we turned around, went back to Germany. That's just
That's gotta
something.
be scary.
Yeah, I was so used to it though. I mean,
I'm sure you have nerves of steel. You have to have nerves of steel at this point. You're a nurse, which I know that's not an easy job in itself. What do you do as a civilian now? Are you a nurse? I mean, where do you work as a nurse?
now I work in utilization review
Okay.
at Weirton
Okay.
Medical.
Did you do any ER time? I mean, you've been perfect for the ER.
I was mental health, mostly mental health.
Oh, we gotta talk.
Addiction recovery, mental health,
We gotta talk.
20-some years. But, and I never did ER. But that's why when I was deployed, I mean, things worked out. We did have a lot of mental health. You know, like
Well, tell me about it. Whatever you can.
suicide, you know, suicidal. There's the Army guys that are there for a year and then their girlfriend leaves them or whatever. And or like troops that are being moved and their whole unit just got blown up in an RPG attack. And another one he was like big Army guy, but you know, he just saw his roommate die. I mean, just different things, and you don't know where they ended up. You know, you just move them from here to there, and
yeah, but in that time frame, you're taking care of them,
yeah,
and you're seeing them, and you're dealing with them. I mean, not, and I say dealing with them, but it's not.
yeah.
I'm sure it was. Wow.
And the one patient had his tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his dog tags tattooed on him. And I thought, that's different. You know, like he really, I don't know. But he was going to Germany and they thought he was going to lose his arm. And he asked me if I would be his nurse when we got there. And then you never know where they went. Like what happened to them.
And you didn't get a chance to be his nurse, I'm assuming.
Well, no, because we were on the flight and we had to get a flight back and come back, and
Wow.
sometimes we'd have patients going back, sometimes we'd...
When you're probably the first friendly, helpful face they've seen after
Yeah.
just getting injured, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's gotta be a lot of, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, there are a lot of young kids.
Yeah.
Like one kid, we landed in Andrews, and I said, do you want to call someone? He said, I don't have anyone to call. And I thought, oh my God, you don't have anyone?
Wow.
And I thought, here's this kid in the Army, just been at war and injured, coming back, and has no one he even thinks cares.
Yeah, you had to have somebody, you'd think.
Yeah.
But- So man, you're dealing with a lot. You're helping these guys mentally, emotionally, and physically. Wow.
And some of them just didn't adjust to being away from home. You know, like some, I don't know. Yeah, well, we figure they're there for a year, so that's kind of a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a very long time. Yeah, our
So they
deployments
have-
were shorter, but
Yeah, so they would have problems with authority or whatever, and I don't know.
yeah, and maybe their first time away from home,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're getting not only the first time away from
I
home, now
know.
they're getting shot
I
at.
know.
You know, and people may look at it and say, "Well, he should have known what he's signing up for,"
Yeah.
or something to that effect.
But they would try to get out of it, you know, trying to.
Well, okay, so you've dealt not only with that side of it, which is absolutely amazing, but I'm sure you've dealt with also the administrative side. Being a colonel, again, can we focus on kind of the officer part of it? I mean,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about your time as dealing with the administrative. What does a nurse officer do? I mean, I have no clue. Stateside, what are you doing? How do you get promoted? Like, give me a little bit about that.
Well, I can't remember the first one, but there's different steps.
Okay.
From second lieutenant to first,
Right.
you have to take the different courses, and then there's squadron officer school, air command and staff, air war college. Most of them are on your own. Some of them you do go away to school But
Okay.
then again, those slots are hard to get. Mostly they're active duty. So reserve, you have to kind of base yourself, to.
So you're fighting for it.
Mhm.
If you want that rank, you're gonna fight to get
Yeah.
that. If you want to go to that school. So let's start with the first school. What's the first school like? I forget what it was called.
Well, flight school?
No,
I mean, for,
anything.
well, for nursing, it was flight school. That was 6 weeks of training.
Okay.
And, it's a review of nursing.
Okay.
And then I only was lucky and I only had the 3-day survival.
Yeah,
But-
people don't know how lucky you really
Yeah.
were.
Because they ended up doing the SEER training.
It's rough.
But, but I don't know if they're still doing that or not for nurses. But, well, flight school was, and we learned the aircraft.
Right.
We would go on and do the training on the aircraft. We would carry the patients on and off the litters and configure the plane. A lot of schoolwork.
So very Air Force school. A lot of classwork and then hands-on, then more classwork. Classwork, hands-on test, classwork, hands-on test. Okay. I didn't know
I think there were
officers did that.
phases. I can't remember. I think there were phases, like you would do the 4 phases for flight school.
I didn't know officers had like a tech school. As stupid as that probably sounds, I didn't know that.
I'm trying to think what it is for medical. That was the one, it's a 2-week one at Shepherd, but I didn't get to go.
Okay.
Again, they said they didn't have any slots and I already went to basics, so I didn't get to go.
Okay. All right. Well, Wichita Falls, you didn't miss anything, I promise. That's where Shepherd Air Force Base is. Let me tell you, that's where we went to tech school, and yeah, you didn't miss anything.
Well, I went to Texas. I did get to go to Shepherd later.
Oh,
for,
okay, good.
I'm trying to think what it was called. Because we would have different trainings, and we had a 2-week training. Like, I got to go to joint, gosh, I can't remember the names of them.
Where they at?
But it was a 2-week one with the Army.
Okay.
It was realistic. I mean, we were on the road and we got bombed and we had to take care of patients and we had to like find diversions and we had to, and we slept in the tent and we got called to go to our flight and we had joint force operation. I can't remember the name of it.
What state?
In Georgia. It was with the Army.
Benning?
Probably.
I don't know all the Army bases.
The 2-week one at the Shepherd was mostly the air operations
Yeah.
training.
And they had a
So-
lot of maintenance down there, C-130s and stuff like that.
Yeah,
down
so
there,
we did a lot of training there. It was
Okay.
a 2-week course, but there were different courses along the way. And then, but to get it promoted, you had to do your CDCs or CBTs, what are they called?
Which one? Okay, so
Not for one.
CBTs are the online ones.
Yeah.
When I did CDCs, they were paper. You took. So officers have CDCs too?
Yeah, squadron officer school, it's booklets. And then you had a test.
Okay.
And you would go to the testing center on base and
Okay, I'm sorry I'm so shocked about this. So you would go to like where we do WAPS testing and stuff like that.
I guess.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry I'm so shocked by this.
And
but I
Air War
never thought-
College, I did on my own. And I did the squadron officer school. I did it with a group at the the Air Force Guard base.
Okay.
There was a group of us.
Well, what's that? What do you do there?
We met weekly to go over the course because you had to, like every rank you had to take an advanced course.
Okay. Well, what does it consist of? What does squadron officer's course consist of?
Probably more direction, like for writing OERs, OPRs, LOCs, or
LOCs, LORs.
yeah.
What they have new LOAs? Did you do?
Just the writing a ribbon, I mean, you had to,
That's true. You guys got to write all that
yeah,
stuff.
you had to constantly keep up with your, well, I had an office, I had an infection control, CPR, like the training, we did the nurses training, and like my office, I was in charge to keep all their medals up to date, keep their,
So you're a squadron commander, essentially.
no, I wasn't a squadron commander.
Okay,
I was
no.
in charge of, clinical management,
Okay.
my last job at the Air Force Base, at 9/11. But before I was in charge of infection control, like I've had different duties.
Yeah, and that's
So I
kind of
had to give the briefings on infection control,
Okay.
just,
So kind of like in other, I mean, it was, what do they call those? Now you've got me thinking.
there's all different sections. There was aircrew training, but I wasn't there, I was in clinical management, and,
Okay.
I
Was it
just
the
had,
program, you were in charge of different programs?
Yeah,
That's
different
what, okay,
programs.
that's what I'm thinking, that was the word I was trying to pull out of my hat of Air Force terms, you know. A program, for those who don't know, is just like a whole bunch of different
yeah.
things, like she said, infection control, so I'm sure that there's a lot of different aspects of infectious control.
We had the CPR training, we had the, just monthly we would have training.
Yep.
And so like our office was all clinical management, we did all the training for the squadron.
Okay. And then, so we got squadron officer school, what'd you do next? So when did you do that? Were you a major, were you a captain?
That was going to, that might be major to lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
Lieutenant colonel to, colonel was Air War College.
What do you do at Air War College?
That's mostly like strategic planning to see like it's more for probably a squadron officer
Okay.
to try to see what you would do in different situations.
Okay.
But you had to have that to move on to colonel, and again, like certain people got to go to the school, but it was mostly active duty.
So
So
you didn't
reserve,
go-
you had to be personally driven to, to do the training and move up the ranks.
Well, you were obviously personally driven because I mean, like I said, it's amazing. I'm humbled to be able to sit down with the full-bird colonel.
Oh,
You know,
gosh.
that's really, honestly, that's humbling to me, and I'm very appreciative of your time.
Thank you.
But so did you actually get to go to the Air War College?
No, I did it on my
Distance
own.
learning. Okay.
And I was at Joint Base Andrews then, and I went in and I tested at their site, and
Yeah, but that could be more difficult than to have
it
the
is.
instruction.
And that's why when I did squadron officer school, you kind of had a group
Yeah.
to help you get through it.
Mhm.
I mean, you had to write essays, and it's harder to do it on your own, but
Well, I've heard that it's like getting another degree, essentially. Like,
I think now they are giving you a degree with it.
okay. Yeah, I've heard that it's basically like an actual collegiate level course.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know anything about that, to the extent that you did, but I would, I've done some distance learning on my own, and it's not easy.
Yeah, you don't have anyone to really bounce back and forth.
Right, and what does the Air
Questions.
Force want from you? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, what do they want you to, yeah, so I think having a physical instructor there would be
Yeah.
a lot easier. So again, my hat's off to you. That takes some personal motivation
Oh,
to
gosh,
do
yes.
it. You're obviously a very humble person, but yeah, I mean, from the outsider looking in, that's an amazing feat. So, all right. So, do you become a squadron commander? What level of command are you handling? As a colonel, as a light colonel, like where are we at?
Well, as a lieutenant colonel, as a flight nurse, there's a lot of us. I mean, we would be in charge of our crew of 5,
Okay.
but we really weren't at that rank that you had to be a squadron commander.
Okay.
But as a colonel, you had to be a squadron commander to stay in, but I was in mental health. And it was a critical career field, and I stayed there until my time was up because I couldn't stay any longer.
Right.
Because I had been in 37 years, unless I was in a position to where I could move up to general. But at the time, like my retirement, I was already past my retirement. As a, I'm not sure how, it was something like 34 years.
Your higher tenor?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they let me stay because I had a waiver. They needed nurses. So actually everything fell in place.
That's awesome. So yeah, you got to stay. You got to make extra rank. You got to.
And then I got to retire as a colonel.
As a full. Yeah. That's,
usually you had to be there 3 years in that rank, but because I had been in 37 years, they did amend it and they let me retire as a colonel.
that's awesome.
But they were giving waivers for well, and when we first went to war, it was we were mandatory. We couldn't get out. It was
Oh, stop loss?
Stop loss.
Yeah.
And so then when they lifted it, it seems like, you know, the ones that wanted to go went, and
The ones wanting to stay
yeah.
stayed.
So they went ahead and gave us waivers if we were in longer. So it worked out to my benefit, and really just all fell in place.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
How was retirement? Was there a big ceremony? How did it go? Or did they just boot you out the door and say bye?
I had a ceremony, but I was only at Andrews for a couple years.
Right.
I went, but I really think that's what got me promoted, because I was in the mental health position, and just the base itself, you know, so high profile.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
Air Force One and everything stays there. It's not a small place.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate that, you know, I got to be accepted there. You know.
So, have a ceremony.
I had a small family ceremony.
Okay.
My family came, but we had a mental health office, and like the people, there were like 5 of us in the mental health section, and we had a little party. They had cake and everything for me.
That's great.
It was nice.
Yeah.
They were very nice. They were very professional. They work in the VA and mental health. They're like, the whole group of them are very professional.
Well, and my hat's off to you, because working in mental health in the military is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
It's not very highly looked at or sought after.
Mm-hmm.
At least from my career, it was never something that you really. So yeah, it's difficult. That had to be a not so easy thing. Now, were you a psychiatrist, or were you counseling, or were you
Mental
in
health
charge
nurse. My background, like I said, I worked in behavioral medicine
Yeah.
for so many years. My background, I had besides the flight nurse, I had the mental health nurse. So I got to be.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So now we're done with the Air Force. 37 years of your life, it's over.
Gosh.
That's got to be a shock.
Yeah, it was. I didn't want to leave, but I mean the travel and everything, it was just, I mean, I've gone everywhere, and I got to bring my family.
Yeah.
I brought my family. My kids were, the oldest was 13. I brought them to Germany for my 2 weeks with my mom, and
Oh, that's super cool.
yeah, and we got to go to France, and I brought them different places, and
And now it's over. So what do we do now?
I don't know.
How long have you been out?
Well, it doesn't seem that long, but I guess it was 2013.
Okay. Oh, that's a minute now, huh?
Yeah.
Are you still working on the outside?
At case management at Weirton Medical.
Oh, okay. That's right. I think
And
you
we
said
have
that.
a
I
grocery
apologize.
store, and we have like 25 rentals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're a very busy person still.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Do you still keep in contact with any of your old buddies
Mm-hmm.
or companions, I'm gonna say?
Yeah, I do.
What do you guys do?
Well, we meet once in a while, go to dinner.
Okay.
a couple years ago, we went up to Lake Erie, spent
That's
a
awesome.
weekend.
Up at Geneva by chance?
No, just Lake Erie.
Okay.
We went up to
And
the
then,
cabin.
are you involved with any veterans organizations now?
Not really.
I see you wearing your Wounded Warrior Project shirt.
I know.
I
Well,
like it.
I just spoke for Memorial Day at Stratton,
Okay.
so
I bet that was, I wish I'd have known. I'd have come down and watched. It had to be an interesting speech.
it was nice. They have a very nice ceremony.
I'm glad. Yeah, our vets need, well, our fallen companions need to never be forgotten.
Yeah.
And then finally, I mean, I got two final questions is really what I end off with. First off, what would you tell somebody young who's thinking about joining the military? You know, give them a piece of life advice.
Stick it out. Don't go and get out immediately. Stick it out because they can have a great retirement. I've worked years and years at hospitals, but I had 4 kids, so I was part-time here and there, PRN, and my military is my retirement right now. But I would tell them, do it. They want to travel, meet people, and just like, there's nothing like it.
Well, it sounds like you had a lot of great opportunities just because of the military, and you just stumbled into them sometimes, and yeah, that's awesome. And then lastly, what do you want to tell other veterans? What do you want people to know about veterans? I'm sorry. What do you want them to know about being a veteran?
That they put everything on the line. They gave up everything, you know, to do whatever job they went in to do. You know, they gave up something back home
No doubt.
to pursue that. And they should be honored.
Well, Vincetta, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time. I can't thank you enough, honest to God. So yeah, and we appreciate it. Thank you for your service. And yeah, do you have any last words that you want to add, or are we good to go?
That's all. Just, I try to tell the troops now, like, don't do your minimum, like, stick it out. You know, and it ends up a great career.
Yeah, it can be. I wish I'd stayed. Sometimes, so. Well, Vincetta, I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording, so.
Okay.
I think I don't know. Last one I did this, I got in trouble. All right, we're good.
Oh my goodness.
So,